Hello everyone, I'm Cathleen Trigg-Jones and welcome to another Creator Conversations where we are celebrating the winners of our Audience Choice Awards from our recent New York Women in Film and Television and iWomanTV Film Festival. Today, I am excited to introduce you to Lynn Dow. She's the second place winner of our Audience Choice Awards at iWoman. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. I really appreciate it. And it's such an honor, and I'm just really glad to be here. And so thank you. Thank you so much for receiving Compassionate Release.
Compassionate Release was a bit of a tearjerker, I'd have to say. For one, you know, it delves into a really deep, complex issue, but it also takes you through a lot of different emotions. And I found that, in fact, with a lot of our films this year, that they really get into allowing the viewer to kind of take a journey through a bunch of different emotions. Tell me, set the stage of the film.
Well, I'll have to start saying why I wrote Compassionate Release. It's a prison program. And my uncle was he was in a New York State prison. And he was there when we found out he was terminally ill. And they released him. And a month later, he died. And so Compassionate Release is a prison program that allows the elderly or an eternally ill inmate to be released early. And so that happened to my uncle. And when he died, I realized that I wanted to shine light on, you know, prison conditions. You know, granted, he went to prison for a petty crime. Nonetheless, it was a crime. I'm not going, you know, selling marijuana on the streets of New York City. You know, that's a crime, it's a petty crime. But the conditions in which they live, and inmates and parole, and I think that we need to, you know, address that now. And so just to, bring light to that situation, the hopelessness of so many families when you have people incarcerated. And so that's what I wanted to do, you know, to shed light on those conditions there.
Right. And I definitely got that vibe from it completely. However, this was about two sisters, twins, right? And can you tell me about the characters and how you came up with these characters?
Sure. So you have these twins, and one is an elitist. And she graduates from their mother. Their father dies, and the mother's left as the sole provider. And so she takes a second job as a domestic worker to send one of the daughters to Princeton. The other daughter goes to a community college, and she meets this guy, and she takes the rap for him. And she takes the rap thinking, because he has the 3-strike deal. And so she takes the rap thinking that he would get off. But the judge says no, a hand of one is a hand of all. And that's the term, the legal term. And so she's arrested for it. And so she's sent to prison, and it's there that she has the kidney failure. And so we're dealing with the Compassionate Release there. And so the sisters are very, very close, but going in two different directions. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're dealing with the twins.
Yeah, and I don't want to give away the complete plot. You have to watch it, you know. But it really is. It's one of those. You know, I remember watching it, being so angry, actually, you know, during it, and at different points. You know, for one, you know, the decision about whether or not she should be released from prison, but also the reluctance from her sister, you know, to really understand why she made the choice that she made. So it really does deal with. Do you have a sister yourself?
I do.
Okay.
I do have a sister. I have actually two families. My dad, and I have one sister with my mom, and my dad, two sisters there. So I do have. I think the twin situation comes with, my grandmother had twins, and there are some twins that run in my family, and so I just sort of mix that up, because that's what filmmaking is about, right? We take our personal stories and we make magic.
Right. And you also got into a little bit of some politics in there, subliminally, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that my two heroes, and I'll say this, but I must say this first. I think that one of the heroes in there is Condoleezza Rice. And for me, you know, I may not agree with the political policies or views of Condoleezza Rice. But what strikes me the most is, and I think it's great for young women and, you know, and young Black women we need heroes. And people who get us there. It's unfortunate for her that she's a part of that party, but I think that, you know, especially as Black women, she inspires. How did you get there? And so I think she became my hero when you see a strong Black woman, you know, speaking Russian, when you see the classical pianos and the brilliancy of Condoleezza Rice. And so that's what, she became my hero, her inspiration. And how did she get to the top that way, you know? And so, and also Michelle Obama is there.
Right.
I don't believe that, you know, behind every successful man is, and President Obama doesn't become president without her.
Right.
You know, I must say that without her, he doesn't become president. And so you have two of my heroes in that scene. And I sprinkle up some, you know, my political views in there when we have that situation, the fight between the mother and the twin. She's going off to the Republican convention with her Condoleezza T-shirt, you know, and I love the line when the mother says to her, if I may, you know, what about your messed up condition, Black Republican? But I think, you know, it's a teacher moment, but that moment was really to say we could have heroes. It does not matter if they're on a different side of the political fence.
Right.
You know, we need heroes, and we need a lot of them, you know. Some of my heroes are, you know, they're not Black. And so some of my heroes that hero of mine happened to be Condoleezza Rice. And, you know, and you want to strive for greatness, and, you know, hopefully we can recognize that and leave the politics alone.
Right.
You know?
And yeah, I mean, for such a time as this, because
Exactly.
what more political time, you know, in our real lives, you know, have we faced before as women? Everything right now is about politics for women.
Exactly.
You know, so,
Which I think if we can set that aside, and I think the country will heal. And, you know, we all go out there and vote for the future, and a woman shall lead us. You know?
Yeah, we can only hope.
That's her.
So you were the writer, director, and producer on this production.
Yes. And, you know, I'll say this. I became a filmmaker under Compassionate Release. I became a producer. I wrote the film, but I think I became a producer. And I say that because you have to go out, and when you talk about using an actual prison in here, you know, normally for short films, you'll go get a, you know, studio but I wanted this to be real. I wanted to show the conditions in the prison system. And so we go out, so everybody's like, oh, it's gonna cost you all this money, and it's gonna do this. And I said, what's the worst that could happen? He could say you can't afford it, and that's it.
Right.
And so I get the script to the owner of Broadway Stages. I get the script to those guys, and he says, we're gonna go for it. And I was like, are you for real? But I learned that if you're passionate about your project, everybody else will.
So true.
One of the biggest, and I love to tell this story, is the music in there. We were able to use a Bob Dylan song. And that was another thing. So I go to the crowd and I said, I want a Bob Dylan song. And they're like, okay, this girl has this big head now.
Right.
You know? I'm like, what's the worst they can say? But you cannot find Bob Dylan's reps or anybody. You cannot find him. And so I had to Google. And all of a sudden I come up with his personal lawyer had made a statement about something that didn't have anything to do with Bob Dylan, but it said, and I was like, ha. And so I called the number, Kathleen, and let me tell you, I call this number. All of a sudden the guy says, hello? I knew that was the lawyer, because who's gonna answer something? You know, either the assistant walked away or something like that, but who's gonna answer the call? And so I just started talking. I was like, I have this script for Mr. Bob Dylan, and I really wanna get it to him. He's like, what are you talking about? You know, it'll break your bank, Bob Dylan. And I was like, look, sir, just give me your email address. If you give me that email address, you know, I'll send it to you. You could throw it in the garbage, because I knew that if he gave me that email address and had that script, he was going to read it. Like, let me see this crazy girl calling about this script. I knew that. And he says, all right, you're here. He gives him his email address. And 3 days later, I get a call from Bob Dylan's manager. And he says, we don't know who you are. We don't know if you're really shooting this script. But Bob Dylan loves your script. And I was like, put Bob on the phone.
Wow. Did he come on the phone?
No.
Okay.
But I was just like, wait, is this for real? And I was like, really? And so he says, yeah, and good luck. And you've got to deal with now the studios, the owner, the masters, and stuff like this. And I would say, because I was so passionate about it, it was just like contagious, and everybody just came in and they're part of it. And one of the things I want to say is that we're often afraid as indie filmmakers to go to the big Sonys or to go to but these guys want to help. They do the big Marvel films so that they can do the little passionate ones. And so it was just a really great experience. I actually got a chance to meet him.
Wow.
Yes, I got a chance to meet him, and that was just so surreal. And I was just like, he was like, and he's just so humble about everything, He was playing at the Beacon Theater, and they said, hey, look, do you want to come to and I was like, Bob Dylan? Yes.
Of course.
And I've got to share this story because it's just so I go there and I'm sitting up front. I'm like, okay, you could tell everybody's looking, who's that? I'm like, no, it's not Oprah. No. And so you start to feel like, oh, it was just an amazing concert. Then they whisk me off in the back. And so there, I'm talking, it's like, very gentle. Keep going, and I feel I'm talking to like the Shakespeare of the music business,
right.
And so I'm
well,
just
you are.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at him that way, and he's like, I love it. He saw the screener, and he's like, I love it. Keep going, and I'm just sitting there like, what's happening here? But the thing is, so I leave, and waiting there are just like these. Martin Scorsese, everybody's waiting in to see him, and I'm like, yeah.
You're like, I got one for you too. Can I get your number?
That's it. Well, see, I was supposed to be the big star, and I wanted to, because everybody was all cool, and I was like, I wanted to say so bad, like, oh, Martin Scorsese, I love you.
Yeah.
But I was just like, okay, Lynn, you're important.
In this moment,
you
right?
can't be that, walk out, and just like, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So that was just like compassionate release when I say I became a filmmaker with this film. So many things happened, but you go after it, and that's the point I want to make. I wrote it. It was a personal story. I directed it, but there was nothing like producing that film and bringing everyone together and having that crew believe in the film, and everybody was just so passionate about it, and the prison itself, just shooting there is just like. That was just amazing. Got a chance to put our names on the wall, and there's Ava DuVernay's, right? Because she shot a lot of her, the Central Park there, and so we're doing all of that. But I think I became a filmmaker then.
I would think so.
That's
I think
where you
so.
become a filmmaker. When you're going through it, and you don't mind asking. And take that chance. But I think the biggest thing is to believe and have that passion. And it's going to resonate. It's going to just like, everybody's going to pick up on it. And so I was very proud of that.
Well, congratulations. I mean, that's an incredible story and so inspiring. This is not your first rendezvous with filmmaking. You've done a few films at this point.
Yes. My very first short film was Above the Sun. And a lot of it was about my uncle. And, there were a lot of technical difficulties there. And the next one I did was Still Harlem. And so I tend to write these stories, these personal stories with these backdrops, what's happening today and what's moving us. And so Still Harlem was a gentrification and what was going on in Harlem. And, that story. And then there was Compassionate Release. It's funny because I always felt an attachment to Still Harlem. But one thing I did with Still Harlem that I was able to clean up with Compassionate Release, I allowed Lynn, the writer, into the editing room with Lynn, the editor.
Okay.
And so I fell in love with all the words there, and I thought every line in Still Harlem was Oscar worthy. I was like, keep it in,
right.
and that's what I got in my own way with that film.
Yeah, sometimes we do.
And sometimes we do,
yeah.
But we pick ourselves up, and I learned so much with Compassionate Release, this film here. And so all the mistakes that I made with Still Harlem, I was able to apply it to Compassionate Release, and then also make room for the more mistakes you're going to have, and more mistakes, and that's and that's the business of it.
I always I say this in business and in filmmaking, you tend to fail your way to success.
That's right.
You don't know. It's just constant building blocks until you finally have arrived.
That's right.
And real quick, we want to teach, and talk about how you did it. What is your background in filmmaking? Did you study filmmaking?
Another personal story, and my uncle, when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, his wife left him. He had a nervous breakdown, and he had to he came to live with us. And my grandmother was probably before her time. She didn't want them to medicate a broken heart. And so she said, we're going to surround him by family. And so he had come, and my mom had given him my room, and he had locked himself in the room. And it's just so interesting because it's so vivid. He had locked himself in the room. And for me, what seems like a lifetime, years and years, my family said he was probably in there for about 2 or 3 months. And when he finally opened the door, it's like we had this long hallway, and every time I would hear the door open, it was him closing it and going back in, so I can never catch him and get him out of my room, But I remember him opening the door that day, and there were just stacks of paper, Kathleen, and in the first page was, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. The funny thing is, I'd said that in church. So we had this church program, and I had said that in church. So I look up at him and I said, you wrote the Bible. 5-year-olds, you don't understand the difference between copying and I'm like, you wrote the Bible. And I could see him now, no, I did not. And so I went around to church, I went around to my school, anybody who would listen to me, my uncle wrote the Bible, because at that age, you don't realize who, you don't realize the author of the great book. And so to stop me, my grandmother had to pull me, because it was just getting out of control. And she had to pull me aside, and she says, Lynn, but guess what? You're a better writer. Look at all the stuff you're doing in kindergarten. I was just drawing pictures at the time, stuff like that. And she said, look, all the things, the nice notes and everything, you're a much better writer than he is. And I'm like, better than the good book?
The who wrote the Bible?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And so that started me really on my journey. And she would always say, to get me out of saying my uncle wrote the Bible, you're just like gifted, Lynn, write. And she would always tell me, write, Lynn, write. And so fast forward, and then you just have it. So she tapped into something that was already there. And that's when it started. And
then you went to Columbia.
I went to Columbia undergraduate school. And you're supposed to go to the law school. You do that, first generation of Ivy League, and so you're supposed to follow this and play it safe, And I did that, and I played it safe, and thought I was on my way to law school, and and decided that I wanted to be happy. I saw so many of my friends leaving law school and not happy, and that was their thing. But I wanted to go out and take a chance and go to California and see what happens.
And look what happened.
And
wow.
And I'll tell you what thing that really got me going and took away that fear is because when I said, hey, look, I'm not going to grad school, I'm going to walk away from it all. And my grandmother, who I'm really close with, she said to me, she says, I just have one thing, Lynn, do not be afraid to come home. And that took away that fear. So I was able to go back out there. My mom thought, oh, you're going to end up on Skid Row. I'm like, I don't even drink and smoke. What are you talking about? Right. But that's a mom for you. She wants you to play it safe. But my grandmother said, go be happy.
And know you always have your way back
and
home.
always
Amazing.
Come back, Lynn. Don't be afraid to come back.
Yeah.
And I think that's what pushed me out there. And I go to LA, and you have this big head. I'm still thinking my grandma said I'm gifted, and so I go out there. You meet tons of people. You try to find your way. You write the scripts, and then I realized that I needed some technical experience with all of that, to that discipline. I needed all that raw talent I had. I needed the technical experience. And so I came back to Columbia, and the best screenwriter that I think some of us know, Jamal Joseph, one of the best screenwriting professors that, and took his classes. And after I had that discipline and everything, I was like, I'm out.
Very nice. Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Congratulations on all your successes. And your latest project, you're directing one of my favorites, Loretta Devine. We'll talk about that on the next time. That's to be continued. But we'll be following you and cheerleading from the sidelines. And you have to come back to iWoman and make a project with us.
Well, thank you, and I'm looking forward to that. And again, thank you so much, and such wonderful films that were, on iWomanTV, and I got a chance to see a lot of them. So
Nice.
I'm really happy about that. But it's great what we're doing, and I think we that's the thing. We just push each other, and
We push the limits always.
We push the
women.
limit.
Yeah.
Leave the door open.
Yes, yes.
So,
Well, I have a little award to give you. This is for Compassionate Release, the Audience Choice Award. Second place goes to Lynn Dow. Congratulations on all your successes. And again, we look forward to continuing to support you and helping to watch you just unleash all of your talent.
Well, thank you so much. But also, I won Best Picture.
Yes.
Compassionate Release,
Yep.
and Best Writer. So this is a truly honor, and thank everyone who logged in and watched the film, and and for you accepting it. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
Thank you.